Why are people skipping breakfast and not eating until the afternoon? Please tell me there's a good reason America's best meal is being canceled.
Breakfast has been canceled. What's going on with that? I'm going to default to my my boy Steven. But before we do that, is anybody at this table not eat breakfast?
No.
And what is
I do eat breakfast.
Okay, so what is breakfast to you?
What do I like? My first meal, what I've been doing a lot is a ginormous serving of cottage cheese and berries. Like literally like 60 grams of protein of cottage cheese.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you, like, why that? Like, what's the, I mean, obviously you're getting your protein, your berries. We've talked about berries and like everybody here is a huge fan of berries, just like nutrient density. They taste delicious. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. But I'm curious why you choose the cottage cheese.
A couple different reasons. I mean, one, in the summer especially, I feel like I wake up and I want something refreshing. Like I love, good eggs and something with that, but it's like refreshing. It feels like it wakes me up. But then I like a little bit of the fat. I feel like I'm satiated because I'll come in and I'll work like a 6-hour block with clients, which I'll try to sneak in some stuff in there, but nothing substantial. And then I usually train right after. So I like the cottage cheese because I'm getting a big dump of protein, but I get some fat too. So I feel satiated for a long time. In addition, and again, I really like it just because it's like refreshing. It wakes me up. It feels good, cooling.
So the lead in there was, I was thinking you were going to tell me, because I know how long your commute is in here.
Oh, yeah.
That it's because it's easy to get down when you're on the road.
Oh, yeah, it is too. Every morning I have to eat on the road.
Used to be a giant thing of yogurt, right? When did you make the switch between yogurt from yogurt to cottage cheese?
I did yogurt for like a good year and a half, and I would do it a lot. And I just need a little different flavor profile.
Yeah.
So are you doing all cottage cheese in your bowl?
I do. Yeah, I do like all cottage cheese. So it's like probably like, I think even I do like a little bit of a lower fat cottage cheese, but I think I still get to like maybe 20, 30 grams of fat on my serving, but then like 60 grams of protein and then all the berries I eat. So,
and you haven't died yet from eating that dairy.
I haven't. No, I feel very good.
I mean, you'd be a good test case for that.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought as well. Like, that's a huge volume of dairy.
Somebody
I
out
think
there
some people they're going to get the farts from that.
Oh yeah, no, I feel good on it.
Freaking out. You eat dairy. Oh my God. Anyways, Cece, what about you? What's breakfast to you? And what I mean by this is like, not just like exactly what you eat, but what does breakfast kind of mean? Because for some people, breakfast is 11 a.m. Like, so are they skipping it, or are they just eating their breakfast when breakfast time is for them is my question.
It really depends. So for a long time, I didn't eat breakfast because I didn't like breakfast foods. I do know there was a period of time where I would eat non-breakfast foods for breakfast.
You eat the weirdest shit ever.
Whether it's last night's dinner or soup or something like that.
Gelatinous soup, breakfast.
Cold soup. Cold chicken noodle soup or something, or cold chili or cold Chinese. Yeah, because I just am not a huge breakfast fan in the tradition of eggs and bacon or ham and toast and potatoes and all that stuff. So it depends on how I'm feeling. Really, it's kind of emotional, but more intellectually now. It's like, I know I need to eat if I'm going to go and work out. I have worked out in the past, quote unquote, fasted of not having a first meal. And sometimes it's hit or miss. Sometimes I feel really good and sometimes it's really painful. It's like slogging through it. So I would say right now I'm really doing my best to try to eat in the morning. So for me, it's something that's really simple to get down. It's yogurt and cottage cheese, and it's my cottage cheese, but I blenderize the cottage cheese because the little curds in my yogurt. Oh yeah, I just can't handle it.
I don't know. I like that. I used to not like the curdles, but now I like them.
As far as blending the two, the smooth consistency, it's easy to get down and it's quick.
Got it. All right, Steven, lay it on us.
Well, for me, I would say like a formal breakfast. I don't do that every day, and that's something I haven't had like a formal daily breakfast in a very long time. And that's not to say that I don't eat at all, though, because I am hungry in the morning. So usually it is like a bar or two or some yogurt or, like more like snack food kind of stuff. And then I usually have my first significant meal of the day would be my lunch. However, that's the days that I'm, getting to the gym at 6 a.m. and I don't really have time to have like a formal breakfast. On days when I'm not in the gym early, I will have a little more of like a formal type of breakfast or like a brunch, I guess, because I actually prefer to not eat a significant meal before I work out. I don't like to feel heavy, and it doesn't sit very well. So I'll train first, and then I'll have a meal that might be like some eggs, avocado, oatmeal, English muffin with some honey, some berries. Like there's a few kind of go-tos that I go with, but most days of the week I actually don't eat a formal breakfast, or what I would call a formal breakfast. Like I'm sitting down at the table and having a full meal before noon type of thing.
I don't need a place to have it. I just need to have it. That's I'm gonna have it, and it's gonna be the same goddamn thing every time. That is the one meal, or kind of the day, or within the week, or within my life, that is the most consistent. It's the same all the time, and it's gonna be egg whites, a couple of regular eggs. And if I'm having carbohydrate at that time, which is pretty typical, say that 85% of the time, it's probably going to be like a couple pieces of sourdough toast, or occasionally like I'll do some hot cereal. And like if I do that, it would be like cream of rice, because it's easy to mix up and it sits well with me. But here's the deal. Like I in the morning, like I am hungry and I am ready to eat. There's another piece to this too. And that is my protein needs will not get met during the day if I don't start early on that process. So when I go back, with regard to the egg whites and the eggs, like you get those 16 ounce, egg white cartons. I do 3/4 of one of those and 2 regular eggs in there. So I'm getting my 50, 60 grams of protein, with there, and then across with whatever's going on there. And that's it. I mean, and it's a little salt. I'll salt my eggs, put a little bit of maybe like hot sauce or something on it, just to kind of flavor it up. And like, I don't have to sit down. Like I'll just stand there and eat it right there. But I got to get it in there. I've tried to do like smoothies and stuff, and I do like smoothies. You went back to like the refreshing thing. Like I could easily do like a couple of scoops of protein powder, some frozen berries, maybe, in water, or maybe some like dairy product or something or whatever to make a smoothie. I enjoy it, but here's the thing with that. I'm fucking starving in an hour. Yeah. Like it just doesn't sit with me.
For sure.
And then going back to the work and your work schedule, and this may be the same for other folks, like once you get into work, like you're going, so there's not really an opportunity to pause and take that pause and actually sit and eat a meal. So then the next thing I would go to, and I just did this the other day, I was talking to Cece about it, and that is like I'd kind of gotten into this. I'd been gone, like so we came back and like the workload was just stacked, and so I ate breakfast, then I got to work. I had I had my cottage cheese and berries that I have, and then I didn't have lunch. I kind of skipped past. I'm like, damn, but I got to get my workout in. So I needed to have some fuel on board. So I hit this protein, my own protein Can-A-Man, thing that, I put together with my scoops of this and that, whatever. Yeah. And then immediately following, knew I was going to be going another couple hours until dinner, because we had planned to have some dinner. Anyway, so I got another ready to drink protein drink. So here's the deal with that. Like, and going back to the morning and skipping breakfast, or doing, a smoothie for breakfast, and then maybe putting my protein drink in there immediately following. Dude, there's nothing in there to keep that protein in there.
No, yeah.
Right? And it goes right through you in a not so pleasant way. And so when you think about your breakfast and how you're onboarding it, we should probably answer the question, but
at some point, yeah.
This is an interesting one that I think people are like, well, as long as I'm getting the stuff in there, I'm good when it goes back to smoothies and things like that. You said fat, like you're onboarding your fat. And your berries, what slows that process and that digestion process down. The nature of the protein that you're putting in there takes a little bit more work for the body to process and assimilate and absorb or digest and assimilate. So that kind of slows that digestive process down. But if you're just throwing those protein shakes in you like that whey protein that's been
it's fast digested,
it's already digested, right? It's ready to go. And if there's nothing in there to keep it in there, how much of that protein are you actually getting? The question always comes up like, hey, how much protein can the body really absorb at one time?
Yeah.
Oh, it's only 25 grams at a time, which is all bullshit. There's no way to really tell all that.
Yeah.
However, what I can tell you is, and I'm very confident in saying this, is that if you're onboarding a good majority of your protein through your protein powder and you're doing that very frequently, you're not absorbing the 40 grams of protein in those 2 scoops of powder, or you're just not. It's going to go through you.
Yeah, that was a big changer game changer for me. And I started to become very aware, like every time I would take a protein shake with just straight protein, like I don't feel good. I would almost get sometimes like a dizziness too. It would almost like flush me. And and again, go right through me in an unpleasant way. And I would super low energy. It would just make me feel weird. So I started now where I do like a carb powder, and I'm in a bulk right now, so I have the carbs to do it. I put a carb powder in, and that's not even like super slow digesting. That's quick digesting too. But even with that, a big difference in how I feel. And I think, kind of fueling that protein synthesis. And definitely a big thing that I think a lot of people miss. They'll just pound protein shakes with nothing with it. So
we got off track a little bit there, but I think the point of that was what you guys said in a couple of those statements is, I think, some of the reasons people skip breakfast.
Yeah.
Right. One, we talked about the convenience piece, right? And then, you talked about the formal sit down. Well, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have time for? Maybe it is a smoothie, and that doesn't take any time at all, really. And so if you're telling me you don't have time to do a smoothie, then you don't have a breakfast problem. You have a commitment problem, and I can't help you with that. You got to fix that for yourself. So I think that is a large reason why people skip breakfast. They have a commitment issue. Secondly, and they call it a time issue, but it isn't. It's a commitment problem. I think the second reason that they decide they're not going to eat breakfast because they made up in their mind that this is good. Like I'm fasting.
Oh, intermittent fasting, I think would be, that was really my first, when I heard this question, that was my first thought, is why has that become in vogue, is because of intermittent fasting and this idea that, well, if I skip breakfast, then I lose weight. I don't actually know how any of this is coming together, but that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yes.
I'm intermittent fasting, and the easiest meal to skip seems to be breakfast. So that's what I'm doing.
Yep.
When in reality, if you are eating 2,000 calories from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., or you're eating 2,000 calories from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m., the net difference is null. It's all about your total caloric intake. Where intermittent fasting, works for people is as a method or a framework to restrict calories. Now, if I'm only eating 2,000 calories between 1 p.m. and 8 p.m. when before I was eating 2,400 calories between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., now I'm seeing a difference. Now I'm actually getting into a caloric deficit. So it's a vehicle for caloric restriction or getting into a deficit. But I don't think a lot of people quite understand that. They're just like, well, I want to lose weight, so I skip breakfast. That's what works for people. That's what I heard on the internet. So
it's caloric restriction.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself in a deficit.
It's a framework to restrict calories. I think the whole, as far as reasons why people don't eat breakfast, there's also, I'm not hungry in the morning. I think that comes up pretty often. Or I don't like breakfast foods. There's a few different reasons for it. And so, I'm not exactly, you mentioned, Scott, the importance of starting early if you do have a high protein demand or a high, you're trying to aim for a high protein consumption. Trying to play catch up later in the day ends up a lot of times with, how am I going to eat, 70 grams of protein in these last 2 meals per day? If I am a woman who weighs 135 pounds, like that seems like a massive amount of food, and I feel really full, I feel really bloated, etc. So that's, in that case, I do recommend getting it in earlier in the day. But ultimately, if you're just getting it in throughout the course of your day, I think that's what's most pivotal.
Yeah, I think a big thing I see with people saying they're not hungry. One, I think there's 2 patterns of your body will start to assimilate to whatever eating patterns you're putting it through. So I used to not really be a big breakfast person either because I worked a lot of late evenings and things like that. But when you get into a regimen and you're eating, my meal times are pretty similar. When you get into that regimen, you will get hungry.
Yeah, your hunger and fullness cues are now like in sync with your day.
100%, exactly. Yeah. And I think another thing is a lot of people go straight to their cup of coffee before they even get their food in, which, if you feel good with that, that's great. But coffee and caffeine in general is an appetite suppressant for a lot of people. So it kills your appetite. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not hungry. Well, if you had 3, and sometimes I had 3 cups of coffee in the morning, but no food. Well, then I think we figured out why you're not hungry. But I think the other thing, like you're saying, like it's okay to kind of plan your day around like what works for you. You have a smaller breakfast. Scott and I have a bigger breakfast. You eat like depending on what it is, and that's okay. But I think you have to consider that the factors that you're adjusting, these variables, do have impacts on your day. So if you note, and you have to be able to adjust these dials and these variables. So for example, like I know if I don't eat, my training is going to suck. Like I lose energy during training, and it's markedly worse than my training if I'm fed through that. So I'll have clients come into like our 10 o'clock classes as a popular class who haven't eaten, and they're like, I just feel so low energy today. I'm not feeling good. And I'm like, well, what have you eaten? They're like, oh, I've eaten since like 4 o'clock yesterday. So I think go figure. Exactly. So you recognize these patterns of like, yes, there's calorie control and weight management and all these different things, but also how's your energy fluctuating throughout the day? How's your energy in your workouts? How's all these other factors? And how does that meal timing and when you're getting those calories, that does have an impact on that. So
yeah, I think people also, they'll more or less fast, and then they maybe they have just a small lunch, and then they get to dinner and they're absolutely starving because they've barely eaten all day, and then that leads to overeating at dinner because I'm starving and I'm just going to stuff my face with whatever is available and as much of it as possible. So you're not exactly portioning out your day in the most advantageous way.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say about this is goes back to sort of the fasting thing and why people make these decisions. Some of it I think is emotional, or a lot of it I think is emotional, but some of it goes back to things I hear or have heard. And I get these questions a lot offline about hormones. And they're trying to tell me that the reason they don't eat breakfast in the morning is because they're trying to have a better hormone profile, cortisol, insulin. They want to tell me all that stuff. They still can't fucking tell me how many calories they get during the day and what their macronutrient profile looks like.
Yeah.
And going back to the coffee, and it has nothing to do with the, half a bottle of wine I ate last night or I drank last night and the, whatever. My point of that being is people are starting to, as Stephen would always say, they're trying to major in the minors on this stuff. Look, call it whatever you want. You need to have X amount of calories during the day. You need to have, your macronutrient profile needs to be balanced for you, for your goals and the demands that you're placing on your body every day. Whether you call it breakfast, meal one, whatever you call it, I don't care where you start eating it, at what time. Cutting calories out to achieve a caloric restriction, the easiest place to do it oftentimes is in the morning because it just means less work, right? Less work to do it. So I think that's why a lot of people do it. The point I would make here is don't when we're cutting stuff, people are talking about cutting meals, right? Like what we're really trying to do is potentially cut calories if we're trying to achieve a caloric deficit. And that can come from anywhere. Like you don't hear generally people skipping dinner, right? It's skipping breakfast. And
but that's also not very social as far as meals go, again, when it comes to work and lunch and dinners and all of those types of things.
So people shouldn't be skipping anything. They should be measured at some level and so that they can have some intuition later on so that they can do that thing they call intuitive eating and kind of have a better idea of what you're putting in during the day. But as far as skipping breakfast goes, I don't think it's a great practice if you're not aware of the other things that you're doing.
Yeah.
What's a fitness myth that you used to believe when you first started your fitness journey, and how did you eventually debunk it?
I guess I'll go first. I have one.
Yeah.
The one that I used to tell people, like when I first started working out, like in high school, people would ask me is the whole like, oh, I want to get toned. Okay, you need to do lightweight and a lot of reps. I told people that for a long time, like not before I was a coach,
how'd you debunk it?
I guess, I just got educated.
Okay, that's the answer. Yeah.
I just learned that that's not the truth. And lots of principles of that's not how things work, of how you build muscle. What does tone even mean? People, we laugh at that all the time. People still say, oh, I want to be toned. We're talking about that with a client. I want to be toned. Okay, well, you need to have substantial amount of muscle and you need to lose body fat around that. So it's like, but man, that was just a funny one. That I still see people want to grab their little 5-pounders and do 1 million reps of these exercises.
Yep.
So
I don't want to get too bulky.
I have 2, I would say. The first one is pertaining more to running. I think How's that? Better? First one pertains to running. And in order to become a better runner, you need to run more. And what I mean by run more is more days and more distance.
More mileage.
When that's not necessarily true. The other one is you don't necessarily have to lift weights to become a better runner. And as far as from a recovery standpoint and to become a stronger, more resilient runner, weight training is really important.
So let's talk about the debunking piece.
The debunking piece is when I actually went through and I was doing marathon training and I wasn't resistance training. And I felt like ass at the end of that marathon. My body hurt so bad. I couldn't even barely walk after that race. And I remember the drive home. It was from Chicago to Tennessee. And sitting in the car, it was miserable. And then the next time I did a marathon, I strength trained, I think at least 3 times a week when I did that. And oh my God, it was night and day. Night and day. I felt like a new person and I was ready to go the next day. So as far as debunking, that
experience.
Was experience and
trial and error.
Yeah, it's so interesting with the weight training or the resistance training, and then what you were saying there about the more mileage to become a better runner.
And that was the second time.
Yeah.
The second thing with the second marathon, less mileage, more tempo work, and I felt so much better. My body held up so much better.
That's kind of a topic, I think, for a whole other podcast when we talk about resistance training for the runner and the mileage, intensity versus volume. And, you know, we just came off the Olympics, and I think maybe Cece and I, we were having this conversation the other day about like the swimming and how much time they're still spending in the pool, right? To swim 400 fucking meters or something like that. They're swimming 4 hours a day to swim 400 meters.
And night.
It's like this old school mentality, like, and clearly whatever they're doing is working, but they're also probably the best athletes in the world anyway.
Yeah.
So, and they've made the commitment to being there, and they've put all the pieces together to win gold medals and sort of. So clearly it works at some level. But when you look at the amateur athletes and the things that they're able to do when they're not spending that much time doing in the pool, because they can't, because they have a fucking job or whatever it is that they're doing, how close they're getting to those numbers with way less training volume and intensity. So probably another topic for another time, but that one's a huge one. And here's the deal. The science is there. Like this isn't like debunking it, like you just mentioned it, which was going to be my answer to how I debunked mine. I just simply got educated. Yeah. Right. I simply just stopped taking other people's word for or believing the myth.
Yep. I mean, my debunking is going to be the same. But I think for me, when I first started training around high school, I think it was the anabolic window. I think the anabolic window was something that I definitely took stock in.
I would freak out.
I have to,
if I didn't bring my protein, this whole workout was nothing.
Gains are gone.
I'm going catabolic. I need 3 cc's of Nitrotech protein from Rite Aid. So I think that was something that I bought into a little bit. That I had to get in the protein shake or whatever. Within 30 to 45 minutes or the workout was useless. And I think a lot of people still buy into that to this day. I think the anabolic window is still alive and well in terms of like what people believe they need to do post-workout.
100%. I was talking to someone about this the other day. They were asking me in group class. Same thing.
Like, do I need to slam this protein shake like the second the workout is over? The reality is, that it depends. It depends on if you went into the workout fasted, if you went into the workout fed, if you want to talk anabolic window, my suggestion is, within 2 hours of a workout, if you didn't eat before the workout or if you ate minimally before the workout, there's a lot of room for nuance there. But I think it was just a matter of getting more educated and, seeking out different sources of, I don't eat within 45 minutes of my workout or whatever. I wait an hour and a half and I'm just fine.
Yeah.
So that
it's funny. I would ask somebody like that what their feelings are like when they're freaking out about not getting their protein or not getting their recovery shake or their recovery drink in after.
Their BCAAs.
BCAAs plus the protein, plus the carb powder, plus whatever else their concoction is, the 8 ounces of bananas with honey and who knows.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you gotta have the honey in there. That makes you recover better.
Yeah. Honey's the magic answer, the magic ingredient. But I would ask them what their feelings are on cortisol. They'd be like, well, what's the hormone you're chasing while you're doing your resistance training or your intense workout?
Cortisol.
It's cortisol.
Yeah.
And why? Because it partitions those macronutrients
trigger the release
of all the good stuff that you're looking for. And so that is the good part of that, right? And getting cortisol. You know how you shut cortisol down right away? Add carbohydrate. Get an insulin response. That's going to shut that shit down. So I would argue that putting in a protein shake, I'll just put in like a recovery drink of some kind that's high in carbs and high in protein immediately following a workout, may be counteractive to the thing that you're trying to do in terms of get the gains. Now, that may not be a very strong argument. There may not be a very strong argument for this, but I will tell you, in theory, that is it. Now, in practical application, in terms of studies or whatnot, I did dig into this at one point, and I'm not going to sit here and try and pretend that I remember kind of what the results of that are. But I can tell you in theory, and the way the human physiology works is that's what's going on there. So maybe don't do that. Go back to what Steven said. Why don't you chillax a little bit, let that body come down, right? Let that gut start to be in a position where you can you get into the rest and digest phase where you do actually get the gains. So yeah, panicking about getting that protein shake in afterwards.
Yeah, that was mine.
Yeah. So mine, so when I first started in personal training, I was in what was a Gold's Gym. So, and this is going to be back in the 90s. And so Gold's Gym in the 90s were chock full of bodybuilders. And that's what kind of fitness was then. You were either an aerobics instructor, you were like some type of an athlete outside of there, football, runner, whatever, or you're a bodybuilder. That's what you did. So I was around all that. And those were the days where you heard all of the old mythology about here's how you get big, put on muscle, whatever else. And, you're just in this like environment where you're trying to take it all in. Fasted cardio was the answer to looking like to getting stage ready. Right. And for years and years and years, and still people are leaning on that hard that the best way to lose body fat is to do fasted cardio.
On the Stairmaster.
And there's just
with your hood on.
Here's the deal. I don't even want to get into it.
It doesn't have any sleeves.
How did it get debunked? It's super simple. Just get educated.
Yeah.
Just get educated. We've talked about it on the show. We went into it in detail. You can go back and listen to that episode. So I will not break down what is actually going on during fasted cardio. But the bottom line is it is not, I will repeat, it is not superior to fed cardio with regard to fat loss or weight loss. Period, end of story. And how did I learn that? I simply stopped listening or reading Muscle and Fiction magazine, listening to all the bodybuilders that were saying this is the best way and the only way to do it. And I just did a little reading, did a little quote unquote inquiring. You could call it research if you want. I think that's a misapplied term.
Yeah.
So I don't know that's really, I read a lot of things and a lot of those things were research papers.
Yes.
But that doesn't make what I did research. Yeah. That just means I did some studying of the research that was done and talked to some people that's what they do for a living. Like they actually do the research. And the bottom line is that was the one. It was pretty easy to actually debunk that one. If anybody gives a shit, it's super easy to find that information.
Yeah.
But if you want to keep living in your little fantasy that, fasted cardio is superior to fed cardio, then go ahead.
If you could only focus on either strength training or cardio for the rest of your life, which would you choose and why?
Well, I would definitely choose cardio, 100%.
Really?
I'm the big cardio guy. I do so much. No,
tongue in cheek.
I was like,
tongue
what?
being facetious.
Tongue firmly in cheek.
Yes. I think I would definitely strength train. Me personally. What about you, Steven? What would you do?
Oh, I thought we were gonna like drum roll because that's I'm.
okay.
What's the cardio guy? What's the runner guy gonna say? I mean, that's a very difficult question because that's kind of like, well, would you rather give up food or water for the rest of your life? Like, well, I mean,
that's deep.
Like water, I guess. Maybe I like eating more than I like drinking, but I sure like drinking too.
Yeah.
So that's like a very difficult question. Although, to surprise everyone, I would probably actually choose strength training because I think you could have maybe more variety there. And I think in terms of your actual health and longevity, I think you lose more losing the strength training than losing the cardio, actually. I mean, the answer is neither. I want both.
Yes.
But if we're doing the hypothetical thing, I think, I would certainly, I would certainly miss running and like my kind of steady state running. But at the same time, I think you could you could still find ways to improve your cardiovascular health via what might be considered resistance training or strength training.
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. Yeah.
I'm not any different. I'm on the same page as the two of you.
But why?
But why?
Yeah.
For all of the benefits physiologically, especially as I age. So trying to maintain muscle mass and, stability of joints and integrity of joints with the strength training. There's enough variability, I think, with lifting weights and how you do the lifting of the weights as far as, intensity and volume and those types of things to get some cardiovascular benefit from it. So that's why I would choose it. That, and then I just enjoy it more. There's more variety in it versus getting on a bike or going for a walk or, swimming and those types of things.
I mean, I'll give my big answer really is I'm so ADD, like I'm so impatient with things. I'm such a get the work done kind of person. So like lifting for me is beautiful if that representation of like, I just have to get this work done with good intention. Like I would much rather do the heaviest set I could of 3 than go like, that sounds torturous to me to run 50K and like suffer through that. That is my and maybe that's something I do need to work on and I'm trying to work on, but the mental fortitude to like, I'm just going to be in this suck and just accept it for this long duration. That's like torture to me for sure. So
I'm going to kind of cop out on this question a little bit, but in a way that to try to maybe bring more context to the question itself. And it's interesting that, when we kind of look at fitness, health, wellness, longevity, that we divide everything up into these silos. And so we're calling something resistance training, and we got something that's resistance training, we have something that's cardio training. And when we know both of those benefit the body greatly, right? From a health perspective, from a fitness perspective, performance, all of those things. So, having somebody to make a choice, like they're pitting one against the other as one's better somehow than the other, or could be. I think you guys made a really good case for why you would choose resistance training over cardio if it was the only thing that you could possibly do. I think there is more variety. I think it does certainly gives you the ability to impact the cardiovascular system in a way that even doing quote unquote cardiovascular exercise is, would provide you. And Cece, you nailed something there just with regard to maintaining muscle mass that is the greatest indicator. Strength and muscle mass is the greatest indicator of longevity right now in terms of, so I think about like, what would I choose? I guess I would have to think about like, how would I want to live the rest of my life? And how do I want that to look and feel? Yeah. And I think, for most people, they would want a long, healthy, pain-free, productive type of life or lifestyle. And I think, the resistance training, while it does come with some risks, it certainly comes with benefits as well. As compared to the cardiovascular exercise, I think you can probably likely draw more benefit or on the pros and cons side from the resistance training. However, I am always one of those people where if you tell me I can't do something, I'm fucking doing it. So the way I would find a way to get my cardiovascular training done inside my resistance training.
Yeah, right? And it may not work the opposite direction.
Yeah,
like you may not be able to get
exactly where I was going to go.
You may not be able to get your resistance training in while you're doing steady state cardio on an elliptical.
So there's a strategy.
I mean, I guess if you're like an elliptical, for example, I guess you're pushing a little bit. Like maybe there's some degree of resistance there, but yeah.
That's the strategy. It's like the transference of things from resistance training to cardiovascular training. It doesn't work the other way from cardiovascular specific training to resistance training. So that's what I meant about I'm going to find a way to get it done because I can get all the benefits, from calling something resistance training with regard to how it impacts my physiology. So I would just encourage people to kind of look back and go like, if I was going to cut something out of my workout, what would it be? Don't cut anything out. Yes. Figure out a way to get it all done. But it's a fun question. It's an interesting one. And I'm just curious to kind of see what your answers are on it. But I think obviously at this point, I'm not surprised by anybody's answer at the table, regardless of what we may enjoy doing more. You mentioned the slogging through the 50K and Steven really enjoys that shit, right? For the reasons he does.
Because he's sick in the head.
That's the thing. Like we all have our, our
transcendent
our preferences. But that said, I mean, I'm choosing, if I have a gun to my head, I'm choosing resistance training all day long.
Well, and I think like for those, if we're speaking of the person like trying to figure out to start their fitness routine, I feel like
which one should I prioritize?
Which one should I prioritize? And I feel like so many people I know and like, oh, I'm trying to start working out. Like, yeah, I started running a little bit. Which again, we love running and we love cardio. That's great. You should be doing that. But if you're going to prioritize one thing, because if your body isn't able to handle the volume of running, if your body isn't, your joints aren't able to handle that, let alone like what's going to give you the most bang for your buck, you should probably consider putting a little bit more priority on strength training and dialing those knobs of how do you get in the cardio as you continue on. But don't always just go to, I'm going to start by just doing cardio.
You said put a little bit of priority. I'd say no, put your priority in the strength training. Build yourself a better engine.
Yeah, so there's the engine piece, and here's another way to look at resistance training and muscle building and things like that. Most people are thinking muscle building, increase the caloric burning machine, right? You can eat more, right? Get leaner, produce those anabolic hormones with regard to the types of training that you probably do to impact muscle growth and all that stuff. But the main reason most people should be training for the long term, the main reason, this is something that I've kind of recently come to grips with, and so talking with some other dudes that I work with, and that is resiliency.
Yeah,
you will get resiliency from resistance training regularly in so many ways, right? And again, go back to the hormonal aspects of this. Go back to the muscle building, the bone strengthening, right? The cognitive benefits. What we're doing from a from a physiological perspective to the body, the neuromuscular system, right? The central nervous system. The impacts that resistance training have on that are on all of those things are markedly better than what you're going to get from specifically cardiovascular training, and whatever that is, whether it's running, rowing, swimming, cycling, whatever else. Those are all very great things for your body and your brain, right? And your mind, like in your mindset. But that's maybe looking at muscle building, resistance training, strength training differently. Think about it as resilience training. You are going to, that's what you're building with that. You're helping to hopefully, right, at some level, avoid the breakdown of your body somewhere from a fall, just from your basic biomechanics during the day, like the competition we have with gravity on a daily basis as we get older, and all the things that come along with life. So anyway, that's the long answer to that, I think.
If you had to train someone to survive a post-apocalyptic scenario, what kind of fitness routine would you recommend to help them?
I know exactly what I
all right,
yeah.
We need to know
exactly. Yeah.
Let's hear Cece's answer.
I know exactly what I'd need.
What would you
I
need?
need to work on my cardiovascular training, endurance, and I'd need to learn how to hold and fire a gun, a pistol, as well as a rifle. And I would need to learn how to use a blade, I think, in case I was in close quarters, so I didn't get bitten or scratched to then become a zombie.
Does post-apocalyptic always imply zombies?
It does.
It could be like a Mad Max, right?
Yeah, I mean, this could be aliens.
It says post-apocalyptic. It doesn't say the zombie apocalypse. So
I think of
we didn't
zombies.
specify what form of apocalypse.
Okay.
Okay, what are these
that's why I love this question. So you may need to. I think you'd have to justify what does post-apocalyptic mean? I think. Look, dude, if we're talking about the zombie apocalypse, that shit's happening right out here on the streets.
I'm ready to go.
All the fentanyl.
You want to see the zombies, then you can go not too far from here.
Right
certainly go to San Francisco.
Guadalupe River Park. Yep.
Go fucking sit outside City Hall in San Francisco, and that's a movie.
And I promise you do not want to get bitten by that either.
It's the movie that's been done a million freaking times, and it's right there in front of your face. So the movie writers, the screenwriters that put all these movies together over time, they were spot on. It looks just like that, right? So that could be, part of it. But I like where you're going with that, just thinking about you're going to have to defend yourself. And the first thing you would need to do would be to run away. Mm-hmm. That's what people are saying. I got to get a gun. I got to get a knife. I got to learn to fight. No, you need to learn to get the fuck out of there.
You need to learn how to fight. Not fight. Yeah.
Part of that is building awareness of not putting yourself in a situation where you're going to be in a bad situation, right? So part of that is that, but the other one is like, hey, first chance I get to run or get out of there. And I'm assuming you're thinking, well, vehicles aren't going to work because of the EMP that just happened, and there's no more gas.
I might have my bicycle,
Yeah.
or I have my legs.
All those
the aliens can't scramble the bicycle. Yeah,
Teslas have all burned to the ground at this point.
thankfully.
All right, so you need to improve your cardiovascular training, and then you went straight to combatives and defensive training.
Yes.
I love that.
Because I know that I'm really weak there. If I had to defend myself, I haven't done any kind of combative or self-defense stuff in years and years. I mean, I haven't needed to. And then as far as firearms go, I'm not a huge person. I'm not really into using firearms. I do it because I know I should be comfortable with it if I need to. But, and I try to do it quarterly, but I mean, it's still in a very sterile or vacuum kind of environment. It's not necessarily real life by any means. So I would need to work on that. And I think I'd need to learn how to use other types of instruments, or I don't know what you call
Weapons.
force multipliers.
Force multipliers.
To defend myself.
It's funny what she said. Did you hear what she said right there about training quarterly with firearms?
Yeah.
She's training more than most police officers train.
Oh,
Think about that in the post-apocalyptic time. Yeah. And she can pass the local qual. I've seen her do it.
Okay.
So anyways, that's another story, but that was a really great answer.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really great answer. I'm proud
Well
of you.
thought. Yeah. I think he's tearing up a little bit over there.
I might be.
single tier.
Your turn, dude.
Oh shit. Well, God, I would hope that. Well, okay. Do we define what zombies? Because we didn't say. Are they
We
fast
said
or slow zombies?
post-apocalyptic. You can go whatever.
Yeah,
direction
yeah.
you want.
When you imagine post-apocalyptic, how do you envision that?
I mean, I
what's
envision,
your apocalypse look
I
like?
mean, my apocalypse. I'm gonna go zombies. I like a good zombie movie, so I like zombies. But I'm gonna go ones that aren't super fast. Like if it's like the Walking Dead zombies, like slow, I'm good. Because then I don't need to work on my cardio. I don't want to. We just went over. I really don't want to work on my cardio that much. I get my minimum 2 days in. But I would work on that. I don't think I would even, honestly, for me, I don't know if I would even worry about a gun. Like obviously a gun is very useful, but I just feel like at this point, like if you're going to get to a point, like if you run out of ammo, like I would put more effort into training with something that's like close combat. I would love like a club or something like that. That's what I'd probably go
Battle
with.
axe.
Like a battle axe or a bat, or I'll just take one of our steel maces from the front.
mace,
and just work on my training with that. That would actually be pretty sick.
That's actually
That wouldn't be bad.
it's not a bad
Work
idea.
on my shoulder mobility while I kill zombies.
All right.
Yeah, that's probably where I'd go, I guess.
I'm so enjoying this conversation
Yeah,
right now. This is
I would
good.
hopefully slow zombies. That's my number one hope.
That's
Slow
your,
zombies.
yeah. Okay. I mean, I think I'm going to take it in a different direction in terms of not as much how I'm going to fight, but how am I going to survive?
Ooh.
How am I going to survive long term? So I
Work on
think
your
I would be,
gardening skills?
yeah, I would probably be, this is cross into physical training. I don't know if that's exactly what the question is, but
think it is.
my thought process is like, how am I going to procure food? How am I going to, make shelter? How am I going to, live off the land or, avoid the toxic waste that has spilled because there was an apocalypse? Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, how am I going to, how am I going to survive long term? And then I guess, that may be dependent on, is there a particular adversary? Are there zombies? Are there aliens? Are there Terminator robots? Are there, is this some sort of foreign power that has taken over and there was a nuclear war or something like that? It really depends. But I'm thinking, how am I going to survive long term?
Yeah.
How am I going to sustain myself?
Well, Scott's already prepared for the apocalypse, I think, at this point. He does play. He's ready
So
to
he's
go
like,
tomorrow.
well, I have a
So
plan
listen.
1A.
Well, he has a bug out bag. He's got everything.
So if you
Maneuver
listen-
number 6.
I have this thing I can drink water from I can pull water from the roots of a plant.
So if you listen to the show, and then you'll probably know that there's a lot of truth in what Ryan just said right there. So I'm going to break this down into maybe more of like the coach's perspective, okay? And talk about it more from like fitness programming and training and thinking about it this way. Because I listened to you guys talk about that. I wasn't going to go at it this way, but that was awesome to kind of hearing you guys. So this is what I would look at. So a post-apocalyptic time, let's just say it's not good, right? I may not have transportation except for my feet, right? I may have to be on the move constantly, which means I may be running into zombies that I have to fight off or, evade. And maybe those zombies aren't like zombies in the movie sense, but they're zombies in the sense that you can see when you go outside the door right now, that people are going to travel together. They are going to, packs will form. This is human nature and animal nature. And that's what animals do in nature. There's safety in numbers. So I would want to be able to avoid and evade them if I needed to. So again, my ability to go long distances for long periods of time, likely with loads on top of me, like carrying a backpack and then also be able to make up for my family. Because a lot of people, when they think about this stuff, I think they think about like, what would they do? But what do you do if you have children? What do you do if you have somebody that's sick or is immobile or whatever else? How do you, all of those types of situations, it's a rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah.
But I think about like, basically, if you look at like strength and conditioning or you look at exercise programming, I would look at like, what's going to give me a very good level of general physical preparedness, like GPP. Yeah. Right. Which is kind of how we look at a good amount of what we do in here on a regular basis. Like, what is the general physical preparedness we're trying to help people achieve in their fitness program? So I would want to be on a program that gives me that, right? Because that's my base level for everything that I just said, everything you guys just said. Because then you moved into like being able to survive off the land. What does that mean? Moving heavy shit, working long periods of time,
building things,
moving yourself, moving other people, all that kind of stuff, right? Then the next thing I heard you guys talk about was like trained combatives, which would be SPP, specialized physical preparedness. And that is, somebody said, I think it was Steven that said training for the fight, right? Not training to fight. Right. And so I would go back to the GPP, like you have to have a base level of all of these things, right? And that being strength, endurance, speed and power, capacity to do work. So the endurance piece fits into that capacity and a base level strength. So I would want to pick something that helps me do all of those things. And then you could get into the, like, what am I doing to train my combatives if it's firearms or blade work or Muay Thai or boxing, grappling, whatever else. And I think I said this before we started because we knew this question was coming. It's going to surprise you probably when I tell you this. When I say this out loud, if I had to look out there, so people are like, what's the workout that I would do? So the workout would be very specific for each individual, right? Based on where they are. That's the answer that I should be giving people. But I think the answer that a lot of people want is like, what's the thing I should pick right now to get me right in and get doing it? And I would say fucking CrossFit.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say CrossFit.
I would say CrossFit.
Yeah, it's a lot of
CrossFit does all of those things, right? Minus the SPP. Yeah. Unless you go to a very specific place that has very specific skills that can help you get ready for a very specific thing. Like so to back that answer up, I would say, like, if you're training for tactical games, right? That is not CrossFit. Right. So, but you may find some CrossFit affiliates or boxes or people that are in that realm that understand the tactical games and can modify what they're doing in that particular environment for the SPP required to be competitive in the tactical games as an example. Obviously blade work, combatives, Muay Thai, MMA, grappling, jiu-jitsu, that's all SPP stuff that you need that GPP to be able to perform well. But the point of that is I would pick something, and I'm not saying CrossFit's the right thing if you're a BJJ guy. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think that. In fact, I think it's not the right thing for you. But if I had to train for the apocalypse, I had to pick one thing to just like, what's going to give me all of these things, and I'm a general able-bodied, human, man, I might tell you CrossFit, go do that. You're going to lift heavy shit. You're going to move, you're going to work with a lot of volume, a lot of intensity. You're going to run around a bit. You're going to perform some calisthenics, some gymnastics movements. All things that I've seen happen in zombie apocalypse movies, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Scaling buildings and running up stairwells.
Your parkour skills.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah.
So where does the hybrid athlete, that's like the new trending term, the hybrid athlete. I don't even know what that exactly means. You guys know what I'm talking about? You seen that yet?
I feel like the hybrid athlete.
A lot of times like a pretty jacked guy who also runs on social media. Like, I don't know if
that's literally
what the criteria is to be a hybrid athlete.
Spartan type branding kind
See,
of
the people who say hybrid athlete the most that I see are people who literally train mostly like a bodybuilder and then run, and they're a hybrid athlete now.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, let me see you move laterally or move to something actually athletic.
I'm 220 pounds, but I can run a 7-minute mile.
Exactly. Yes,
kind of thing.
Which, like, again, those are great. That's cool. We want both things, but that's not. That gets thrown around so much.
I just want to throw that out.
But people don't even think about like GPP or like other things like that of like ways of, or even let's not even talk about like athletic performance. You're not a hybrid athlete because you bodybuild and run.
Yeah. That was my way of getting your guys' opinion on the hybrid athlete thing. I keep seeing that on Instagram more and more, and it's like Nick Barr. That guy is like he's like the champion of that.
Yes, yeah,
guy's fit.
I mean, he's big dude for how much running he does. So
he's fit.
He's doing.
It's funny, like we're getting off topic here, but the guy's an athlete, right? And
for sure.
A lot of levels when you think about athleticism and the things that entails, which is a broader conversation, but. Yeah, I mean, to have to label it for Instagram or whatever, this is the hybrid athlete. He's a fucking athlete.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is, right? He does a lot of things and he does them well.
Yeah.
As coaches and trainers in the gym, have you ever witnessed a complete disaster in the gym or during training?
That's a broad question.
That is very broad.
Broad question.
When we were talking about it prior to going live, I interpreted that as a gym fail. Like a complete disaster would be like a gym fail. Like somebody who like, I don't know, collapsed under a barbell, and stuff fell down and weights went flying. That's kind of what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, is it like a motor moron or is it a mental midget?
Yeah, I think
you're gonna need to define these
you
two.
could gym fail either way. Yeah, you could gym fail.
Are you allowed to say midget?
I just did.
Is that PC?
A motor moron or a mental midget?
I want to see. I've heard the motor moron. What's the mental midget?
Let's define.
Yes.
Motor moron, somebody who has zero kinesthetic awareness or very little kinesthetic awareness. They don't know how to move their body or they don't know where their body is in space. So we've had certain individuals from certain parts of the world come in and they've never done a squat or a hinge or have had to push anything horizontally. And they just look like a disaster. They're very uncoordinated.
Okay, so
they kind of look like Bambi or as far as like
Bambi on ice.
Shaky leg,
exactly, on ice. As far as a mental midget, that is somebody who doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to be able to lift or push any type of load. That they're very physically able, but their mindset is not there.
So like ego lifting or like biting off more than you can chew?
I think you're saying the opposite.
How does that
we
lead
need
to
some
then,
ego.
How does that lead to a disaster then? That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, the disaster is them only being able to do like 5 pounds on something. That's a disaster for CC.
Okay.
Are uncontrollable in their movement patterns because they can physically do it, but emotionally and mentally they cannot.
They've decided they can't.
Yes.
Or
So just like their
no mental fortitude.
Their movement is a disaster, but there's not some big.
She said intestinal, and you were making the connection with the mental and the mindset piece.
Yeah.
Or let's think of it this way. So I might get slammed for this, but let's say you have somebody who is an Olympic lifter and they can clean easily 55 kilos, but then the minute you put on 56, they can't do it. They just completely fall apart.
No?
I can be a mental midget.
So there's a lack of edge that's happening there. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But have you witnessed that specifically? I guess that was the question.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I can fully relate.
Seen
to that.
a lot of those.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Man, I think about when I was a kind of a newer coach. I'd been training for a couple of years. I had this woman that I placed on an assault bike, and it wasn't an assault bike like we're gonna get after it. I was just like, let's just warm up, just move. She was not on that thing for 30 seconds before she yacked. Just went over. She was the most like deconditioned person. I guess we can give the caveat, like, we're here to help people. We love helping people. We're not here to make fun of people. Like, I love helping, but she was very, she was.
So look, that's a great call out right there. And just like, hey, we are compassionate people, but it's just like, maybe if you think about like a firefighter or a paramedic or somebody that just has to go and see the worst shit every day. At some point, you just get a little bit numb to it. And there's a little bit of like, there has to be some comedy in there
Little levity,
to get through the day. And so I think that's very fair that you put that out there, man, because I find you to be a very, compassionate and caring dude. I see it every day. The point of that is like, even still, you look at that, and what I hear you saying is like where this person is with their health and wellness at this stage of their life. They've had their whole life, right, to get their arms around taking care of themselves, and they are, by definition, a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
Right. And we see that a lot in here. And I think people need to hear that. They need to hear the honesty in that, and the brutal honesty. Because honestly, I don't know how to, at this point, I don't know how to sugarcoat that or make it any, with all the things that we're faced with out there. And when I say we, I just mean collectively, the larger we, all the things that we're faced with out there in terms of like making exceptions for people, for certain populations, for groups, and having this expectation that all the other people, the majority, somehow make space and accommodations to make those people feel better, despite how that might be impacting the majority at a lot of levels. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but the point of that is I think people need to hear that. And I think they need to hear that people within the majority, as compassionate, as caring as they are, this is what they fucking think. Like, it's like, man, you're a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not necessarily going to tell you that to your face. And my job is to help you. But at some level, you got to come to grips with this, dude. So I've seen a lot of disasters like that. And the job there is just like to undisaster them. Right. But they have to be willing to do that. So I've seen those disasters a ton. But I've seen a lot of other different types of disasters. I wonder about you.
Yeah, I think you probably have probably would have the most stories. That's how I was thinking about it, but I'm now struggling to think of like a specific incident that I witnessed where like somebody like broke a mirror or slammed a med ball off their face, other than me, but that wasn't that bad.
I think I've heard
so many fucking stories.
And that was a Dynamax ball, so it was kind of soft. It just reminded me I needed to not follow the ball to the floor so much. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah, is like somebody dropping something like. I mean, we did have it wasn't a disaster, but we did have somebody snap a band on a chaos push-up recently.
Oh, yes.
Thankfully, she was okay.
And she did a little tuck and roll, and she was chill.
Yeah, thankfully, she is not a disaster physically.
Yes,
so she was actually, she's resilient. We talked about resiliency, and she was able to survive a sudden snapping of a band that was supporting her body weight. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But when I think disaster, I think somebody, like something fell on them or something broke or
man,
because there may be a Bambi on ice, motor moron
type of situation.
I used to work at box gyms. I worked at 24 Hour Fitness, and there was a guy that came in flip flops, and he was pushing the sled, and he just like chunked off his whole toenail, right? Like his whole big toe on the sled, just kicked it. And it was bleeding everywhere. We had to deal with all this. And then obviously there's all the sanitation. I'd tell you not, 2 days later, he's doing the same shit. Flip-flops on the sled. And I'm like, did you not learn your lesson?
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Mental midget.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. Leading to the disaster.
Exactly,
Yeah, so I've seen people that are a disaster become a disaster, right? Or have disastrous consequences for their actions like that. Like, it's just, the gym is a special place. Right. The gym is a special place with a lot of special people. And I've been special a time or two in my life. But in terms of the stories of these like disasters, the list goes on and on and on. I'll share a couple or share a few just to give some contrast. And I'll start with kind of the worst or the most morbid ones is that I've seen two people pass away in the gym. One male was it was a dude, he was on a treadmill, and I was there. I saw that. But I was also in the gym when somebody else passed, another middle, let's just say 50-ish age male passed away in the spinning room. It was in a spinning class. So I've seen that, like, going back to just being fair and kind, like, I don't know where those people were on the motor moron versus mental midget side. Doesn't matter. I've told that story or a little bit of that story before, but I have seen that, and that's super sad. I mean, you spend a long enough time in this, and you're probably going to see that. You're probably going to see that stuff. I mean, and that stuff really resonated. I mean, we're doing CPR.
Yeah.
Or somebody's running for the AED, and then the paramedics show up, and dude gets carted out, and he's not coming back. Kind of thing. So I've seen that kind of a disaster. I've been the disaster. I was down in Houston, Texas, going back to the big box gym stuff. And there we had like, I don't know, I think it was like 13 or 14 clubs down there, and I had to get through several of them. And I was doing a late night workout with a guy who used to be this Russian cat, actually, and he used to be a professional fighter. He's like, let me take you through a workout. And I was like, great, this sounds great. So I went to this little gym, one of the smaller gyms or whatever, and they had this like this boxing setup where the bags were hanging from this rack, and we were kind of over there, and I was doing some bag work with him, some mitt work with him, and they were doing some med ball work. He's got this big ass 50-pound, go back to the med balls, this thing, and he's sort of throwing it at me. And when I say that, like it's controlled, but he got one past me, and I say it was his fault, but it was just I was fucking exhausted, and I just mishandled this ball. It bounced once, it bounced twice. And it went right through the plate glass window up front of this gym. Now, keep in mind, the gym was already closed. We were there after dark, like, and the glass. It was completely destroyed. And so then we had to call the general manager, right, to then call the maintenance crew. So now all these employees that had to get out of bed to come down and clean up after my mess and put like plywood and stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Dude, by the time I got back home, like that shit had traveled through the entire company that, that I had broken the window and the thing. So that's like, that's one thing. I have seen, we've had people come in, like even a Red Dot. I remember, this gal comes in. Oh my God, I know exactly. You know what I'm talking about? So let's go back to mental midgets and motor morons, all combined in one, and started before they even got into the gym. This person was using one of those things called Class Pass. If you know for people listening, they might know what that is. We've gone on back and forth with Class Pass and allowing Class Passers to come in and take some of our classes. So this person signs up. She signs up for a class. It's an evening session, or whatever. And our sessions are very small. There's only 8 people in these sessions. So group sessions. It's just small for, I think, majority of places. She walks in 10 minutes late to the session, and we're very specific about when you're signing up, you need to be there early. She comes in, she's clearly just signed up for whatever's convenient for her at this point. The coach is like, hey, you're late. I need you to go, like, I'll allow you to come in, but you need to warm up first. Here's what I want you to do. And she was very resistant to this, but apparently she went through it. She was kind of looking a little funky, apparently, to the coach. And the coach had said, hey, when was the last time you ate? Oh, I haven't eaten today at all. Right? So signs up class and eat. Already, this is like mental midget times 100 coming in. And then she gets into the class, and they're not started more than 10 minutes. And she's getting woozy, and she's having a tough time standing. And so the coach goes over and says, what I need you to do is I need you to sit down, because she can tell she's going down. She goes, no, I don't need to sit down. I'm fine. Starts to walk out the front door, like of the gym, onto the concrete, right? And plate glass windows, they're out front of the gym. She makes it straight outside and fucking timber right down on her face. Oh my God. And then, it's like, doesn't know what happened. She wakes. Call EMS. EMS comes out, right, and starts to deal with this lady. And here's where
she refuses. And
she doesn't want to go. Like, she doesn't want to go, oh, no. Like, this is all the things, right? So this is where it turns into a huge disaster. So we've filled out incident reports and whatever else, and got the report got a report from the fire department who'd showed up and whatever else, and she'd refused, and we got a statement, all that stuff. So we get a phone call, right, from her probably about 2 weeks later, basically trying to, what's the word I'm looking for?
To sue?
Not embezzle, but like...
No, the word I'm looking for is, hold on, it's coming to me. I want to say strong arm. What's the word I'm looking for, damn it?
Yeah, I know now I'm losing it too. Extort.
There it is.
There you go.
There it is. Yep. She's clearly being coached by an attorney somewhere, probably one of her friends or whatever else. And she's going down this path. And we're like, this is the first time we've really dealt with something like this. And it always comes from these outside people, which is part of the reason we don't deal with ClassPass, right? Because you get these fucking idiots that come in, right, all the time that want to live on their own program and do their own thing. So anyway, yes, I said that for you ClassPassers out there. So anyway, she starts to try to extort money out of us, right? And we're kind of going back and forth, and we're trying to play it cool. And I was dealing with her up front. It was like through an email, and there was a couple phone conversations or whatever else. And I finally asked her, what are you looking for? Like, what is exactly that you want? Well, I think I should be compensated this because I missed work, and this was the ambulance fee. She ended up going on the ambulance ride because that's what she wanted us to pay back. And Cece picks up the phone. I have her on speakerphone. Cece picks up the phone off the desk for me. She goes, you know what I think? I think you need to be an adult and accept responsibility for your poor decision making. And don't ever call here again, because if you do, then you hear from our attorneys for harassment or some shit like that. She just went on and on and on and hung up the phone. Never heard from her again. It went away. But that was one of the things that came to mind from a disaster. And the disasters generally start from people making poor decisions. Mine was a little bit of a mistake, whatever. I'll take full responsibility for it. I was just tired, dropped my hands.
But you took responsibility.
I took responsibility for it, and I had to eat that shit with a spoon and a smile, for a long time. But going back to the disasters, like the people passing out, the complaining and all that stuff. Yeah, if I look at disasters, like it usually starts with the human, right? And just not being really well put together and expecting something or not really wanting to work hard or making just poor decisions that turns into like disasters. There's a million other stories. Yeah. I mean, I bet a million.
I just think about, I think I've seen probably like 20 to 30 of Cece's drinks get spilled in the gym when she has a drink with a client.
Oh, you want to talk about how many times have you broken your toe in the gym? Or your finger? No. I've watched her drop dumbbells on her. It's been at least twice she's broken her big toes in here by dropping dumbbells.
Well, one was a 45-pound dumbbell. Yeah, that was the first year we started working together.
That was awesome. It was right off the bat. Yeah, I've seen her be a disaster in here. I've certainly been a disaster, tripping over shit and whatever else. But yeah, again, kind of all ends of the spectrum. But it's usually humans that are disasters. It's not usually anything else.